Howdy folks, I'm Mark. How you doing? I'm late. I'm sorry. Yeah, I almost skipped this week and then I thought of something, so here we are. Thanks for joining me for this short talk about video games, because you're listening to Quick Play. So let's get right into it. So here is the thing, is I am probably getting myself a little racing simulator. A friend of a friend, Billy, one of his friends, has upgraded his whole racing setup and offered his racing wheel and a seat for $250, which is a steal if you don't know kind of how pricing around those works. But I looked at getting a wheel a couple of years ago, first got into Formula One, and was looking for a wheel for the Xbox. Ended up selling the Xbox and kind of never really pulled the trigger there, but now here we are. The wheel is formatted for PlayStation, so I'm now looking for a PS4 and trying to get F1 23 as the last gen of the Formula One series to be released. So looking at getting that on Facebook Marketplace and grabbing this racing sim from its mutual friend. And excited about that, but it is a hefty purchase. So that's also right on the heels of a Switch 2. And I did all the math on this. A while ago, I figured out what my game expenses are, kind of per year. I spend about $400 a year on video game stuff. I don't know if that's a lot or a little, depending on who you are, but this year I've spent almost $700 already before all that racing stuff, and that's largely because the Switch 2 with Mario Kart and a Pro Controller was about $620 of that. So I did really want this racing sim. We're doing this big garage project to make it more of a playroom, so it'll fit right in there. So I made a commitment to myself and also to my family that I will have no more spending money on video games until Christmas. And that made me a little nervous. I was thinking, like, is that trade-off worth it? Am I doing myself? What about all the new games I want to play? I'm going to miss out, for now, at least, on Donkey Kong and Metroid Prime both coming out. I'm also worried about, what about all those great deals? Like, eventually Prince of Persia, Lost Crown, that I want to check out, will go down to $5 or something. I'll have to skip that. And started like thinking, like, this promise I made to myself, is this dumb? But then I started strategizing. I got a little more excited about the challenge. So I do have all these other games still accessible to me, like Epic Games and Amazon. Ever since I got my Steam Deck, I've now just opened up this Pandora's box of getting free games through stuff like Epic and Amazon. I can play those on the Steam Deck. I have all this stuff that I still haven't played yet and stuff I want to replay. So I'm just thinking of, like, planning out my year of, hey, what are the games that I do want to play? What else could be available to me? I'm not reinventing the wheel here. You all know the backlog breakdown guys. They have their backlog beatdown whole metagame they do, where it's prioritizing games that you've already bought, and trying to reduce your number of purchases. It's kind of like trying to get that score down. You take a -1 for every game you beat and take a +1 for every game that you buy. And I never really did participate in that because I don't have much of a backlog. I have kind of one, enough to probably fill me up for 6 months. But what I want to think of this as the rest of the year being kind of a net zero mentality, just having no more added costs toward video games for the rest of the year. That does mean I could sell stuff to kind of ease some extra margin there. That's something I really don't like doing. There's too many times I remember just selling games in my youth to GameStop and then regretting it later on. So I kind of stopped wanting to do that. But also I can just, beg, steal, and borrow. Probably not begging, certainly not stealing, but borrowing is certainly on the table. So I think I'm doing this. And one exception I did want to make is Switch Online. That's kind of shared with other people. So it's something that that's a decision I've made that I'm already paying for, in a sense. I don't have to make a new decision that I'm going to pay for this. That's my one caveat. But I started planning out the rest of my year. So these are the games that are on my radar currently. I'm still playing Pikmin 4. I borrowed that from a friend. Once I get this racing rig, then Formula 1 will be on the table there. And if I can make it make sense, I'll probably pick up Snowrunner as well to enjoy the wheel. But going beyond that, I just got Marvel Midnight Suns through Amazon for the Steam Deck. There's these GameCube games keep being added on to Switch Online. I've put some time to Mario Strikers. I want to check out Chibi-Robo for the first time. I'm sure there's other Switch Online games I just haven't checked out that will kind of incentivize me. I'm excited to think it through of like, hey, I'll try this out. Let's just try it out for the night. Maybe it sticks, maybe it doesn't, but just putting some game time in there. I'll likely replay Tears of the Kingdom. I've got a few backlog games I mentioned. So Arcade Paradise was another one of those free games I got. Lego Bricktales was one that I got through a bundle or something. Lonely Mountains has updates coming out. And then on top of that, Epic and Amazon both giving out free games. So that will probably give me a few other items as well. But this also got me thinking kind of a longer term thing of what would it look like to do like a net zero year. Maybe that's a year before a big purchase where just trying not to have any positive spend on video games at all. Or it might make more sense for, I'm thinking maybe actually doing this for next year for 2026 is I've got a gaming allowance. If I have $400 or even bring it down to like $250, $200 to spend on video game stuff, how would I spend it? And it's funny, like I started thinking about that in how Fantasy Critic, you have the drafting games where you have this $100 budget and you choose what to bid on games on that. But like the way I strategize with that is I do these really small bids until I'm ready to cash in on all one game. And so even thinking of, would I be pretty conservative throughout the year? And then I have a nice little margin to take advantage of a Steam sale at the end. All of this too is I just have this weird, I don't know if it's weird, I have an anxiety around spending money on video games. Thinking about like if you were to spend $70 on groceries, it feels like nothing. That's easy. Even $70 on like unnecessary snacks, that feels like nothing to me. But $70 to spend on a game feels like a lot to me. That's a really hard decision. To see a game and want it, but not really be sure if I really want it for that much, it gets me in my head. And then I waffle through like, am I missing out if I don't get it now? Will it even go on sale later? Am I going to regret paying for the game if I do get it now? But it's not often that I even feel like I missed the money, but I kind of like the idea of intentionally setting aside the money for spending on games because that would both just free me from the anxiety. It would limit me, but also would kind of free me up. I understand I'm just reinventing a budget here. Like this is literally what this is. But I kind of want to set a way for these decisions to be easier because right now it's like I'm bummed that I'm missing out on Donkey Kong Bonanza for now, but it's kind of nice. I don't have to worry about making that decision. Like I'm not spending 70 plus tax tomorrow because I'm not going to, and I'm going to be missing it when I see all the people raving about the game. But until then, I'll make my decision to get it later on easier. And so, yeah, I'm just curious to know if you've done this too. So I'll wrap up here. I mentioned playing Pikmin 4. But yeah, I'm curious to hear if any of you have done this before and how you look at budgeting. If you like a way to track your expenses, I do have the spreadsheet I made for myself. I've made that into a template as well, so that's in the description if you want something like that. It'll total up amounts for you based on category, like hardware, software, and it'll do it by year, so you can even mark off stuff when it's a gift at all. It's all automatic for you, so check it out if that would be helpful for you. But for now, thank you for listening in. You can follow us on the major podcasting services or on YouTube. You can press all the good buttons there if you like this conversation or, this monologue. You also follow us. You can also find us on the proper socials at Quick Play Pod and let us know what's your gaming budget like. Have you ever just frozen your assets for video games? I'd be curious to see how that went. But that's all the time we have for today. Thanks.